So awesome. So this is our second fireside chat. Looks like we have a good group here. Really excited about this. So if you're new to all of this, basically I run something called Silicon Dojo. The idea is authorityless, gatekeeperless, free to the end user, hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is that you want to do. Basically, I've done online education since 2009. I've actually met people literally all over the world that my education has helped. And so with the self-destruction of social media, the concept is, can I take what I did online and bring it to the real world? So if you don't know, we actually have a classroom over in Hatch 2. It's 700 square feet. We got big screens. We have people come in every week for classes. And so basically, my idea is, what if there was a high quality place for technology education where people can just come? You don't have to be admitted, you don't have to jump through any hoops or any of that. You can just come and learn how to do things. And so this is the experiment. We will find out in a year or two whether or not this was a stupid idea or not. Why I want to do fireside chats. So again, I've been doing this since 2009. One of the differences between me and a lot of other online people is I've actually been interacting with my viewers since 2012. So I actually started doing live streams on YouTube back when it used to be called Hangouts on Air, like literally about a month after they debuted it. I actually started talking with my viewers. And one of the big problems that I found is that people know APIs, they understand replication strategies and all that kind of thing, but there is a massive gap between getting your degree or learning in subject matter and understanding what the hell it is we actually get paid for. It's absolutely amazing to talk to really smart people that are completely clueless about why they get paid in jobs. And so one of the ideas with a fireside chat is to bring in people to actually talk about what they're doing, why they're doing it, what the decision points are, so then people can get a better idea of what, basically how to actually do things. The other thing I like about this is with our fireside chats, a lot of times when you go to YouTube, you're gonna watch people out of New York City, you're gonna watch people out of San Francisco or Seattle, and they're not lying to you. They're being very honest for what you do in a metro area with 10 million people and a crap ton of money. What do you do in Asheville does not look like what you're going to do in San Francisco. And so that would bring in John Jones in, bringing Jacob in, bringing these other folks. These are actual technology professionals in Asheville. And so we get a better idea of what's going on here. Let's see here. I cannot read my own writing. This is horrible. Oh, well, just so you all know, we are trying to get our 501c3 status right now. We're getting some help from Chris back there to hopefully get an accountant soon if they call us back and get a lawyer. So if you know anybody that's a high net worth individual that just has, extra money laying around, hopefully in about 4 or 5 months, we'll be more than happy to take that money off of their hands, just so you know that's going on. Beyond that, are there any people, I know I kind of pushed people into asking for stickers tonight, because, are there any people that are actually looking for jobs tonight? Like actually looking for jobs? Oh, are you actually looking for a job?
Yeah, I do it all day, every day.
Oh, holy shit. I'll come up here then. Anybody who is actually looking for a job? Well, the one guy, that's why you have 5 stickers.
Well, I have 2 jobs, but I like to.
If you're looking for a job, you can come up. This is your opportunity.
Okay, fine. Don't be shy.
So, tell them who you are and what it is you're looking for.
Hi, my name is Chris. I am recently fun employed. I'm looking for a home. I live right up the street. I'm a full stack developer leaning back end. I do Python, TypeScript, and I like to travel.
My name is Alexander, and I'm new to Asheville. I've been working in production support as a developer, as a business analyst, data engineer. My strengths are in data analytics and the cloud engineering. So I would like to continue working in data science, data analytics, and with cloud technologies. Thank you.
Okay, you stay. You get your weird present now. I thought there was gonna be more people here, and this is gonna be a lot cuter, but that's how things go in technology. Here, you win your sliced carrots. There you go. I thought there was gonna be like 4 or 5 people, and it's all gonna be competitive, and they're gonna be like, "What do I win?" And you give them sliced carrots, and you're like, "Look, it's a prize." And there you go. Gives you your vitamins. Okay, Jacob, would you like to come on? So this thing should be on. Plop in the seat. Yeah, I always worry like somebody's gonna like fall off and sue me. That would not be good. Oops, wait a minute. Sorry, my thing is obnoxious. That's why I have my other. You want me looking at orange the entire time? Can't outshine the guest. Be like the big orange guy with the guest. There we go. Can't fly. So, thank you for coming. Yeah. So, let me get to my notes. So, tell us a little bit. What is Level IO? What are you guys actually doing?
Sure. Level is a tool for IT professionals that helps them manage and monitor all of their devices, like Windows, Mac, and Linux computers.
Is this like VNC, remote desktop? Is it its own beast?
Yeah, it's really its own beast. So in the industry, anytime you're managing more than 10 devices, you have hundreds or thousands of devices, you have to centralize that management. So this is a centralized place to go to view all of the assets that you manage and responsible for. Any of those assets you can, of course, remote control to provide real-time support, but also you can build policies to enforce desired state on these devices. So I want them updated every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but only these type of updates, and I need those updates delayed for stability reasons, and I want to monitor the print schooler, and I want to, it's really to help IT be proactive and instead of reactive.
Is this like just for the Microsoft world? Is this using Active Directory, or like what OS is it for?
So right now, Level supports Windows, Mac, and Linux.
That's interesting. So I remember I asked you this before. Like, did you just rescan VNC for this in order to make this a product, or like, how did you build this?
Yeah, I wish it was that simple. We started actually with Apache Squawk-a-Mole. You're familiar with that?
No.
It's really old school technology for like essentially VNC, but only really on the same network. It's not really designed to go across the internet. It's similar to VNC. Performance was atrocious, very horrible, and so we ended up building our own remote control solution.
How long did that take to build?
About 2 years.
So what kind of stack is that built on then?
Sure, there's kind of 3 pieces to the app. We have the front end, which is a React web application. It communicates to our API, which is on the back end, that's a Ruby on Rails app. And then we have the agent piece that's installed on the Windows, Mac, and Linux computers, and that's Ruby and Go.
Okay, so Go is cool and React is cool, and Ruby is not. Why did you pick Ruby?
Ruby's very stable, and that's what we were going after. And our VP of engineering had really good Ruby chops, so we were able to build out the API in probably 2 to 3 months.
I mean, is there any decision point with that? Because I know with Ruby, it's kind of interesting. Like 2012, 2013, Ruby developers were walking around like, yeah, we're Ruby developers. And then that kind of like turned to Node, so now everybody's a Node developer. But like Ruby is kind of weirdly coming back. Like, do you think about that when you're using your stack, about the coolness factor or whatever, I guess?
No, I think if we were going for coolness factor, at that point we would probably pick Rust. But there was a lot of things that went into consideration. One of them is complexity to learn something like Rust versus Go. One's much easier. Finding talent, that's another key thing. We can find Rails developers and React developers very easily. It's a standardized framework. They all know how to hit the ground running right away with their code base because there's these conventions that it's built upon. So a lot of that went into our decision making.
Are you concerned about going into the future? Like there's that whole thing, you've been building a code base for 10 years and then realize you need to go over to a different language. Like, have you thought about that at all? Or you're just going ahead with the code base you have?
We're very careful with every change that we make to ensure that that's a bit part of a lot of software teams in the past. And yeah, after 5 years developers have this, a lot of developers have this instinct of, it's time to throw everything out, let's just rebuild from the ground up. And that sets you back 5 years, or at least a year to rebuild your entire business.
Interesting. So like, what does your company look like then? Like how many employees or contractors, that type of thing?
Yeah, so we have 8 people on the team, eight or 9. One guy that's dedicated to our React front end, one guy that's focused on our Rails API. We have 2 agent developers because it's much more complex, supporting multiple operating systems. We have a guy that's focused on DevOps, that's a little bit of QA as well. And then, everybody else is just wearing all the hats, marketing, sales.
Are they all employees or are they contractors?
Yeah, everybody's full-time. We have one contractor that helps out with SQA testing as we're getting ready to come out of release.
Is there any reason you went with all employees instead of contractors? I mean, I know a lot of companies, especially in the beginning, it's a hell of a lot easier to get rid of contractors if something goes sideways.
Yeah. First off, we're an entirely remote team, so everybody is already where they want to be in the role. So many of our developers are remote, but we wanted to treat them as employees because we're trying to create this world-class team of A-level players, and we found that A-level players want vacation time and health insurance and sick time and all of these things that you might not get as a contractor.
And then how does that work? So when you're hiring international, how do you make sure you're following all the laws? And especially when you start dealing with Europe, they're a lot nicer to their employees, which means there's a lot more paperwork for you to deal with. How do you verify you're dealing with everything properly?
We have lawyers that deal with that, but primarily, like, we have unlimited vacation, unlimited sick time, so we're already, we're compensating on Silicon Valley rates, even if you're overseas, so we're already a step above most players in those markets, so we don't have to compete.
And with that, so with everything currently going on in Silicon Valley, what we're up to 250,000 people laid off. I know when I talked with you like a year and a half ago, and I asked you very naively, it was like, so out of curiosity, when you give people unlimited vacation, is that good for managerial purposes or motivation? And you just looked at me and were like, dude, that's what I have to offer. That's like, in order to get anybody, that's just what's required now. Have you noticed with the layoffs, is there a change with employees and like what you have to offer at this point? Or have you even noticed?
The last set of employees that we hired, we had very little difficulty. I thought it was going to be 2 to 3 months to fill it because these are senior level engineers, there's very high technical requirement, but there was just so many applicants that we kind of had our choice.
So that's different than it was like a year and a half ago?
Yeah. A year and a half ago, we had a much harder time competing with other companies.
And so then what is your client base? So like how many systems are you or is your platform managing at this point?
Yeah, so we have hundreds of customers managing right around 15,000 devices, something like that, 15 to 18,000 devices.
So like what's the average customer? Do they have 500, 1,000?
Yeah, so initially when we first rolled out, we started focusing on small businesses, and for us that's anyone that has around between 100 and 500 employees. We found that at that size they have to have an IT department, they need some sort of centralized management for their infrastructure. So that's where we started, and now we're branching out to larger enterprises, 1,000, 2,000 devices, as well as managed service providers.
Do you do smaller? Do you do onesie-twosie shops or 20 people shops, that type of thing?
Yeah, we have a bunch of them. Like, we don't go out and market for that type of business, but we get a bunch of them as well.
So I know we talked before about that because I thought you did limit what size, because isn't there a security concern? Like a hacker might actually be like, wow, this is amazing remote management software and start compromising people's systems.
Yeah, we've worked with many government agencies on people that do try to use the platform for abusive tendencies. We require credit cards, which makes it a legal company, an actual company name, a real email address that matches the company, credit card, and then we also monitor the first set of devices and scripts, anything that we add to the platform. fraudulent accounts, we quickly suspend or ban.
And now, with everything going on, so supposedly I've been informed by Reddit, we are in the middle of the World War III or something, supposedly. So everybody's saying that there's some kind of cyber war going on. Like with your company, again, it's interesting since you do remote management software and you're a very small company, and you see that SolarWinds got compromised and TeamViewer got compromised. Do you, like, what processes do you have in place to make sure you're not compromised? And more interestingly, actually, do your customers care?
Security is probably the number one question I would get when I do demos for companies. Anytime you centralize the management of your assets, you now have that single point of failure. So we've taken a ton of steps to protect that. I'll kind of cover the key ones. First, anytime you remote control a device in level, we're utilizing peer-to-peer connections. And so what that means is your browser is directly connected to the device you control. There's no level server or relay between you and that device, which drastically increases the security and also lowers the latency. Additionally, we allow you, obviously, and encourage you to force two-factor authentication for all your users. So now you have just that email and password, but also that second factor. And then you can also restrict access to your devices to behind a VPN or certain sets of IP addresses. So that kind of covers a lot of the, I guess, public-facing security measures. And then to address like the SolarWinds compromise, we would have to talk about like build security and password hygiene, not using like SolarWinds 123 as your password, using password managers and changing them. So a lot of that there's compliance standards. There's SSD 2, SOC 2, there's ISO. And so we're going for those compliance standards right now.
So you're going for them, but you don't have them? Okay. So like with your customers, again, it's one of those interesting things, like, do they just take it on a handshake? Has anybody ever audited or wanted to audit your infrastructure to verify it's doing what it's supposed to be doing?
We also do 3 external pen tests per year, and we make those available to any customer request. Outside of that, I have had many customers ask for our last pen test just to make sure, like, hey, is this recent? Have we done something like in the last year? I've never had anyone, they ask the thought like security assessments, kind of rating yourself, but I've never had anyone like, I want to audit your infrastructure or your code.
Interesting. Okay. And so with your clients, how do you actually do the client acquisition process? How do you actually find the folks?
It's a combination. So we're obviously doing advertising through Google, Reddit, LinkedIn. Then we do email marketing, cold outreach, and then spearfishing. So we pick the segments that we want to go after and they're coming to those IT directors at those companies.
So what's the sales process? Because like, if I'm running a company, and again, even with their disastrous reputation at this point, if I know SolarWinds, it's like, I'll just pay $50 an agent for SolarWinds. Like, what's your sales pitch on why they should go with you instead of somebody else?
I mean, there's a lot of things that we've already talked about. Like security is at the front. This is peer-to-peer technology. The application's been built from the ground up. So if you look at like SolarWinds interface, it looks like it was built in the early 2000s, maybe even late 90s, and we have a modern app. So those things are like immediately apparent on the demo.
And then what's your price point now?
Yeah, so we charge between $1 and $3 per device per month, depending on the size of the client.
So you've gone 1 to 3, because I think at like 1 million cups you said like 4, and I know like a year and a half ago you said like 1. So like, what's the thought process on like how much you charge per client?
Yeah, it's been a learning process for sure. So when we launched, we started at $1 a device, because we were just shooting for that MVP. At that point, we were really just a remote control product. That was, you could view like some information about the device and you could remote control it. That was pretty much it. And now we're talking 4 years into the product. So we have patching for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and monitoring for all those platforms. You can monitor the CPU, this usage, memory usage, services, all of these elements. So we're a full-fledged RMN. And yeah, as we've added all of these features, it requires obviously more work and support. And
So was there any decision point on basically give everybody the kitchen sink or do $1 for this feature, $1 for this feature? Like, why did you pick one way or the other?
so everybody that signed up at like $1 devices stated that we grandfathered them at that rate, and they'll continue to be at that rate indefinitely. So it's only affecting new companies that sign up past that point. We thought about slicing these up the feature by features, but it increased the engineering complexity. So we're just like, hey, we're going to provide all of our features. It's going to be fully featured. We can have unlimited users. We don't restrict anything. It's a flat rate per device, usage based, no contracts, month to month. A lot of those things are differentiators if you look at like solar business. Generally, it's a 2 or 3 year contract. You have to agree to a certain number of agents. It's not transparent. You have to have hundreds of conversations to get your price. Yeah.
Do you think you change it in the future? Or like, is this based off of what you think the market will bear or just engineering? It's just too damn complicated to deal with it right now.
Yeah, if you look at our competitors, most of them are still charging double what we charge. And I kind of like that. Like it means price is never a deciding factor when I'm on the call with any prospect. So you can really do direct comparisons. I never have to worry about another solution being cheaper. So yeah, I think we're pretty happy with that. We have some big features in the pipeline that might adjust our pricing because we're shifting toward automating much of the common tedious tasks for IT administrators. And so with features like that, that's essentially could in theory replace multiple technicians. That you can start to like build separately for.
And so with client acquisition, is there anything weird that's come about? So like everything in technology, like I noticed this when I had my computer repair shop, is that sysadmin work was a pain in the butt, but you could just go do it and get paid. Whereas like web development work, people would literally walk in with like $10,000 checks and then not send you the copy for what the hell was supposed to be on the website. And so I found that like with different tasks in the tech world, you get weird things out of customers and clients. Is there any like weird stuff for again with acquisition or dealing with customers that you weren't expecting?
Not that I can think of, at least not at this point. I think our more difficult customers to acquire are probably managed service providers. That's just because they have so many more requirements when it comes to managing hundreds of small businesses.
And then also with what's going on with the world right now, with Russia and all that, and since you sell globally or just in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much we sell in the U.S., Canada, and Australia. We have maybe a couple of EU companies, but that's it.
I mean, could somebody in Iran, if they have a working credit card, like start your service?
Probably not. It would probably get flagged, yeah.
Like, so, like with that kind of thing, do you talk with lawyers or how do you, again, like it's interesting, like these platforms as a service, again, our politicians make decisions and then don't necessarily explain it to anybody. Like, how do you have any idea of how to keep up with that kind of stuff, especially as you grow?
Yeah, it's really tricky. For us, it's primarily based on infrastructure. So for each of these regions, if we want to provide a high quality service, we have to deploy assets to Australia or Canada. So it's just an expense. If we had a ton of companies all of a sudden sign up in India, we would blow up infrastructure there. That would be awesome.
So do you need edge infrastructure like that, especially since it's peer-to-peer communication? And I know architecture of, let's say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it made sense to have endpoints as close to the customer as possible. But with internet speeds now, and especially once the connection happens, it's peer-to-peer, is it necessary to actually have these servers so close to your customers?
Short answer is yes. We've done some testing and yeah, the performance is actually noticeable. And it has to do with primarily, when you think about all those end devices. So at a potential building, they might have, let's say, 1,000 computers. All of them are communicating to this. They're maintaining a real-time socket to our API in case a management action needs to be performed. if we can bring that socket closer to them, and they're also sending data to this constantly. What's the CPU temperature? What's the CPU performance and memory? So all of this data from every single device on the network is being sent every 5 minutes. It's being dumped to this API. The closer we can get it, the better, the faster, the more real time it's going to go to the IT function.
Have you thought about any kind of local boxes, kind of like how Amazon now, you can buy their service and then they just send you a box and it's local and they charge you for it? Are you thinking about anything like that? Or?
That's a great idea. Yeah. So we've thought about what we're calling a proxy device. So it's essentially once you get the agent on one of the devices on this network, you could designate it as a proxy, and from there you could, in theory, pivot access to any asset, even assets that potentially are you can't have an agent on, like an IP phone or a printer or a web camera. So then you can have an HTTP or SSH proxy to those endpoints.
That's cool. Okay. So that's kind of the beginning of, I guess, where you guys are now. Are there any questions for what they're currently? So we're going to do this in 3 parts. I forgot to say that. So we talk about where they currently are, then we talk about how they started, and then we talk about where they're going to. So is there any questions on where they are? Yes, Alex.
I have a question about where you are in terms of security. Do you have a designated security IT staff? Yeah, security.
We have a CIO, and that's his sole focus is on our security and compliance. But we don't have like a chief information security officer or anything like that. We only have 9 employees, so we're really tiny.
Yeah, you mentioned that you work with some government agencies to get the security. Do you have government agencies as clients, or do you just focus on like private companies or not non-government organizations?
Yeah, I don't have any government through level. I don't have any government clients, but we're evaluating going through the FedRAMP process so that we can take on government clients. That's kind of transpired through several government entities being interested in using our platform.
Any more questions? No? Quiet audience today. Okay, let's talk about where you started from. So where did you start in the tech field? Like, how did you start?
Yeah, I started in computers at like 9 or 10, doing websites, any HTML, CSS, whatever I could do to get my GeoCities page up. Then I quickly shifted into dynamic content, and put things behind authentication, so I put in PHP and MySQL and all the things related to that. Joined a few web communities, ended up starting my own, built it up to 4.8 million readers, and then I decided, hey, I'm going to start a web hosting company to have this really popular web design magazine that everybody's reading. I'm going to sell web hosting to them. And so I started a web hosting company. It wasn't very successful. Turns out most of those web people already had hosting providers, so know your target market in advance. After that, I went to AV Tech, got my associate degree in web technologies, participated in a cyber defense competition, placed 3rd in the nation, took a job for Apple for 3 to 4 years, worked in special projects there as an engineer. Then moved back to Asheville, North Carolina to work as a director of software development for a company here. But my dream was always to run my own software company.
So you started at AB Tech, and now to be clear for everybody in the audience, we're not competitive, we don't, whatever, but I haven't heard the greatest, reviews of AB Tech. So it's interesting you say you started there and then went to Apple from that.
Yeah, I graduated AB Tech at 16, so I graduated.
What? Wait a minute. Let's scroll back on that. How did you graduate high school? What? Yeah, what? No.
Yeah, school wasn't really my thing. I wasn't very interested in that, so I was able to put a lot of effort, graduate early, and come to a role at the time, get an associate degree from that, finish that, and went on to focus on other things that were interesting.
Okay. So, oh, that's interesting. So with AB Tech then, I mean, is that a good school to go if you want to work at Apple? I mean,
Probably not. Probably not. I hesitate to say this, like, I do sit on their board for their web technologies program. I think the skills that Apple's looking for, you're not going to get from any university. It's like a deep passion for your area of expertise. They're looking to hire the best of the best, the A-plus players, the best in the world. And they don't care whether you got a degree or if you even have a degree.
kind of sidestep the quality of AB Tech, but okay. And then, so you're saying AB Tech is probably not going to get you to Apple, but then you got to Apple. So how do you go at 16 from graduating AB Tech to Apple?
Man, thinking back, it is quite interesting. I think I wrote quite a few articles. I got noticed by some people at Apple, and that helped.
What kind of, like when you say article, I mean, you're talking about like CSS, or are you talking about something actual?
No, like engineering. At that point, I had shifted more toward back-end programming, engineering, that kind of stuff. Thought leadership. Yeah, I think it was, I got noticed from that, and then I placed third in the nation at a cyber defense competition, and they were like, hey, we'll give them a shot. I remember distinctly after the interview, like flying home, thinking, there's no way they're gonna hire me. This is, I was so stupid. I can do it so much better now. I didn't know any of their answers. But yeah.
So how old were you when you were hired at Apple?
20, 21, 22.
Okay, so you were 21, 22 when you got there. Okay. And so if you're at Apple, again, apparently if you get to these FANG companies, they are the most wonderful things in the world. Why would you leave Apple then?
Yeah, I honestly didn't think I would leave Apple while I was there. Like it was definitely, looking back, the most exciting time of my career. There's a skill and a level of like obsession that Apple ingrains in their employees. It's just really exciting. But yeah, I was chasing that dream of like, I want to start my own company. I want to run my own software company. And I found, a business partner here that was willing to like jump and go all in on this business that didn't pan out. But yeah.
So why come back here? Why not drag his ass out to California versus come back to North Carolina? I mean,
I actually lived in California for 3 years. But yeah, in the end, I mean, I was born here, I'm from here, I love it. And I wanted to come back, and there was an opportunity where I could make really good money and be here. So I did.
and so with starting a startup here again, because that's the big. I mean, I was in Baltimore where we have millions of people in the metro area, and people are still whining, and we've got like maybe hundreds of thousands here. Like, what's the value proposition of starting a startup here, or is it just love of the area? Like, I guess is there literally any value proposition to be here?
I guess maybe community. There's a really great supportive community. In the tech space, I don't know that there's really much incentive outside of like, location. It's just a great area to live. It's lower taxes than Silicon Valley. But if you look at like, the resources or the funding or even the talent that you're going to find elsewhere, yeah, you're going to be able to find it for sure.
So is there anything? So the political thing is heating up, and they keep talking about small business and startups and tax policies and all that kind of thing. Is there any valuable policies in this area that actually matter to you? Is it like, oh, thank God, you said taxes, but is that just like kind of like a one-off thing? Is there anything that's actually useful here?
I think we have a really good venture Asheville, like the Elevate program is really good to kind of like a startup incubator with various industry experts as mentors. And that's been incredibly helpful to me. I've actually been a part of it as a mentor as well with several other companies.
And so for the idea then for Level.io, so where did the idea for Level.io come from?
Oh man, this is interesting. It started kind of as a documentation tool. So I was meeting with a local MSP here, maybe once a month, kind of advising them. They were starting their own software team and they wanted to get into the software space and they were building this documentation product. And I went through, did like code review for them. It was kind of like coaching them on engineering best practices. And he was like, man, we're just not making any progress. We've been at this for like a year now, and we still don't have a product. And this is a pretty simple product. It's just like a CMS. What's going on? And did a deep dive. And I was like, this is really bad code. Like, you should probably just throw this away. And he's like, well, like, can I hire you and just come in? And it's like, no, like, my dream is to run my own software company. I don't really want to work for somebody else on something. And he was like, okay, what if we made that happen? What if we just funded it and you started your own, software company? That's kind of where the conversation started. We spent like 3 months kind of like prototyping what would this documentation tool look like and doing interviews with customers. And very quickly we realized nobody wanted to pay money for a documentation tool. At least not in small businesses, maybe in the MSP space. And at this point, we had this like agent that we had kind of prototyped that was running on these end devices to report out data about the device. Keep your documentation always constantly up to date. And so we pivoted, like, okay, what if we could help you manage these devices remotely? And yeah, that's kind of where it started. It was really scary thinking back at that point. Like, there were certainly times where I wasn't confident entirely that I could build a product. And it was very scary. I remember having conversations with like our VP of engineering. And was like, can we really do this? Is this even going to be possible? Because we kept doing prototype after prototype of like VNC-based solutions, Apache guacamole-based solutions, and everything was just horrible. And we knew that we could use this new WebSocket technology to send video streams across the browser. We were confident we could get this browser-based, but we weren't absolutely positive.
And then how did he originally get funding? Like, can you say what your original amount of funding was?
$3 million.
Okay, so in Western here, how the hell do you get a $3 million check?
Networking, I guess would be, I think it, primarily, I think that's just what it costs to build a team, to put everything together, and to have a runway that can last us 5 years as we're going to experiment. That's how I'm starting a company. It's pivoting, many things are going to fail. Documentation didn't work out, we pivoted. Even within this RMM space, we've had to do several pivots to find our footing. And I didn't want to be unstable. I come from a very stable foundation. I've always had corporate jobs. And so it was one of those conditions. If you want me to be a part of this company, I don't want to feel like I don't have a job tomorrow. So I need to find a way.
But like, how do you actually get the money? Because I've talked with people around here, and one, nobody knows where the hell to get money from. And two, I've actually heard, apparently if you want to start a brewery, they'll throw money at you. But like, if you actually want to like do a technology project, apparently there's a lot of old money here that's, not quite sure about this newfangled internet thing.
I've probably met with maybe 100 investors over the last year, and I'm confident we could raise money if we needed to. It probably wouldn't be local money. We were really fortunate to find a strategic partner here.
So if there was a startup like here that was trying to get some kind of funding, again, let's say 3 million, like what would be your recommendation to them to how would they go about that since we are in Asheville?
Yeah, so make it as easy as possible for the investors that you're going to be approaching. So it's great if you already have some type of idea, maybe even prototypes, you've done hundreds of customers interviews to validate that there really is a market for this product, there's demand, maybe even have early access customers that we have a little early access list, so we can say we get this much guaranteed revenue, we can use this product. So those things all help, and then outside of that, I would just start booking every VC. Like, they will all take your meeting, there's no doubt. VCs love to meet with people. So they will all take your meeting. And if you have a very compelling pitch, which I think around the 15th to 20th meeting, you get it down. And I bet you'll get it.
So to find these VC, do you just Google like Asheville VC? Like, how do you find these VCs?
I wouldn't target Asheville, but I would target the industry or sector that you're in. So there are VCs that are just in tech, specifically just in the SaaS space. And even within that, there's niche investors that just invest in like business IT software.
And so you're CEO, but I know when at a million cups, there are like 4 or 5 of you that are like head leadership. How did you pick who was going to be CEO?
There was never a discussion on yeah, this was a dream team that I had put together. So I assembled this team from companies that I had worked at previously, which is also why it was so difficult and required so much money. It was like, I don't want you just to hire me. I also want you to hire all these other people that I'm bringing with me, who also all want top dollar. That's a really tough pill to swallow.
And then how did you guys figure out equity split?
I would say probably at first we didn't really care that much about equity. It wasn't until like there was acquisition on the table or compensation drama where that started to come into play. So looking back, I wish we had like ironed that out better at the beginning. But we kind of just looked at like what's an industry standard for a VP of engineering or a startup pre-series A in terms of equity. And that's what we issued.
So, but you're co-founder, right?
Yeah, there's 4 co-founders.
There's 4 co-founders. So I guess more like with you, but that core 4, how did you figure out who gets what?
Yeah, just like that. So it's like the VP of engineering, who was my business partner. We looked up like what is the equity standard for pre-series A companies. The VP of design, what's the standard for pre? Same thing for CEO, what's the standard pre-seed?
And then how have you dealt with disagreements? So again, you get 4 geeks in the room, and they're all going to have their own opinion, and they're all going to be completely right. So how do you deal with a co-founder who just thinks you're wrong?
Yeah, luckily we've worked together for 10 plus years now. Most of my co-founders. So there's not too many disagreements. We all know, we all have our zone, we all have our specialties. We stay out of each other's area for the most part. But when there are disagreements, there's just hours and hours of discussion until we can work through and come to a solution.
And I guess the final question in this is, have you guys thought about basically disaster scenarios for the co-founders in the company? And so I had a buddy of mine who had a startup who it was taking off, it was amazing, they were going to retire young, and then his co-founder got a divorce. In the settlement, the wife got half of his assets, but his assets were all in equity. So they ended up having to basically sell which it ended up just destroying the entire company. And they were just like, wow, we didn't think that was going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
We've thought about disaster recoveries in terms of like what happens if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, can the company continue to function? Does everybody still have access to everything they need? But yeah, not in that regard.
Okay, just kind of curious. Okay, so that is how this all kind of began and where you're coming from. Do we have any questions from anybody? We have a quiet audience today. Oh, okay, we got 2 questions.
I guess related to your friend that you mentioned where the wife had half of the other partners, typically they're buy-sell agreements. Did that not save them, or they didn't have the money to be able to buy her out? Or
Oh, it was take me an hour to talk about. It was just a disaster. That's why I was curious. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they were MIT graduates that had like the next great thing, and literally the court was like, yeah, she gets half. They're like, yeah, but it's all in equity, and they're like, fine, liquidate. They're like, no, we can't, and they were like, yes, you can, yeah, you can. Oh no, you have to have the micro. It's a recording.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. How many years runway do you have left, and do you expect yourself fundraising at any point past that, or do you think you'll be self-sustaining?
It's a great question. There's kind of three paths that you can go down at this stage. So the traditional approach would be to try to utilize our revenue and our profits to reinvest in the business and kind of grow organically. Then there's the, let's call it the modern Silicon Valley approach, where we raise a Series A. For us, that would be like 10 to 20 million, and dump all of that into the marketing and sales, and cross our fingers and hope that we can turn that into a Series B and a Series C. And then kind of the third approach is to sell to a strategic buyer. We've weighed all of those options, and we're hoping to avoid raising a Series A. Like we're really hoping we can bootstrap the company. So that's our goal.
I'd like to tie together something I've heard both of you talk about. Eli, you were talking about finding legal and accounting services to support some of your business ambitions. I'd like to kind of open that up to Jacob and say, have you been satisfied with the kind of business support that you've received from the local community? You know, there's certain kind of specialized services you find you have to go out of market to get.
Yeah, I think there's a competition here. So, 6 months ago, we went through an acquisition, conversation, and we did engage a law firm here, actually locally. We were somewhat concerned that they might not be able to handle the complexity of it. They did fantastic. So thus far, for at least accounting and legal, we've been able to use local resources.
Any more questions for where they came from? Yeah? Okay, so let's talk about the future. So the question I have to ask everybody that gets up here is, how long until ChatGPT kills your business?
I think it actually is probably going to help us grow more. I think if we could utilize it, there's several things, there's several areas where I think having like an IT assistant that can kind of help tier 1 techs troubleshoot issues and maybe even potentially solve problems for them. I think if anything, it could help us grow.
So just out of curiosity, are you actually impressed with ChatGPT? Because what I find interesting is we've had machine learning and AI of some form for a decade that's been doing a lot of amazing stuff. And then all of a sudden ChatGPT comes out and now AI matters. Like, do you think it's actually as important as people seem to think it is?
No, I think like for us, what I'm excited about is the natural language ability of ChatGPT. I think that chatbot type interface could be really helpful for technicians. Like behind the scenes, we would run our own machine learning across all of the event log data. We would run. I don't think we could pass all that to ChatGPT even if we wanted to. We're talking about terabytes of data per day across thousands and thousands of machines. So I think where it gets interesting for us is building out our own models around the data that we have across these devices.
So like what technology or framework would you use? Like, is it TensorFlow, or like what do you think what path do you think you'd go down?
I'm not sure. Like, I would have to spend quite a bit of time like really thinking through that.
And so right now, everybody's remote. So if your company grows, and let's say you got that $20, $30 million, whatever, bootstrapped or whatnot, and would you go to 100 employees? Like, how big do you see Level IO getting?
Wow, yeah, this sounds like a conversation that I have with our board. I believe small teams can accomplish a tremendous amount, and so I would like to keep Level as small as we can, or at least structured in small teams, like maybe small 5-person teams, each team focused on building out a feature to completion. I don't see us going past 30 to 50 employees. Yeah.
That doesn't give your investors a small heart attack then? I mean, isn't that?
They want a lot more employees. It comes down to them, like ACD, we could grow faster, we could do more, we could support more platforms, more operating systems. But my goal is to, like, I want to get stable and profitable and grow at a rate that we can afford sustainably.
So have you had any like real arguments about that? That's kind of interesting. Like, because what you're talking about is diametrically opposed to what many investors want.
Our investors are like amazingly supportive in terms of they want the same things that we want. They want to build a really cool product that helps IT professionals. They want to use the product for their own business as well, so like they have like this selfish interest. And so we're really fortunate in that way that our interests kind of align, which is great because like I mentioned before, we have this set vision of like, I don't really want to work for a startup. I want to work for a stable company, but this is a startup, and so my goal is to shift it to a stable company as quickly as we can for my own like standing.
So will it always remain remote? I mean, can you imagine buying a little building around here and having Level IO headquarters out of Asheville, or will it always be kind of how it is now?
Pre-COVID, we weren't remote. We had a little office building. We had a developer that moved from New York to Asheville to work with us. Then COVID hit, we went full remote. I don't think we would go back. Like, there's just no way. Like, at this point, every new hire, like, our whole model is just like, we don't care where you are, we just want the best person for the job. It doesn't matter where you live, we'll pay you what you're worth. Yeah, I don't think anybody would.
So do you have any, I don't know, weird feelings about that? So you like Asheville, you like Western North Carolina, you came back here, you're building this startup company that has millions of dollars in funding, and you're hiring people all over the world. Like, is there any feeling of supporting the local community? Like where, again, the internships, how do we get the next you is through an internship, but if you're only doing remote work, then...
I mean, 6 of our employees are in the area, so I guess we have some preference in that regard, but as we grow, I think that's going to be less and less. There are certain roles that I would prefer to have here, customer support, sales, marketing, things like that. If it could be local, I would love it to be local. In our experience, at least in the tech market, it's very hard to find the caliber of engineer that we're looking for. Really challenging.
Do you think anything like the program, so we got AB Tech, we got, was it Montrose, are they of the caliber to actually put out people that you might hire in the future? Is there something that they could do? Like, are they on the path to it in 5 or 10 years? Would they be putting out quality enough people?
Unfortunately, like, I think a lot of that has to do with what they're teaching. It tends to be pretty dated, right? It tends to be 5 to 10 years behind industry standards. Like they're not teaching modern frameworks. There's a lot of problems. So AB Tech is really like a starting place, hopefully for you to find your passion and accelerate learning through other means.
Well, what about, so Montreat apparently is putting a lot of money in their cybersecurity program. It's because that's a bachelor's degree program then, right?
Yep, it does. I think Montreat shows the most potential of the programs in our area.
Fair enough. Okay, so you're trying to bootstrap. So are you interested in acquisition at all, or do you just want to keep doing what you're doing?
No, I don't think it would have to be a very appealing acquisition offer. At this point, we're set on what we're doing and what we're doing.
And so then there'd be no IPO either. Not planning IPO. Oh. So the investors then, they're not planning to get a home run out of this. I mean, you're not going to be a $500 million company.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I just don't think they're like that.
Wow, wow, okay.
Last crunch of the numbers that we did is like more than a 10x return for them. So I think they'll be very comfortable with their position, especially as we grow. I think what's in it for them is the long-term return. I think we now have this large company that's continually can bring in revenue indefinitely.
So with you or your other co-founders, though, I mean, it does seem a bit limited. Like, do you think you might get like bored of this at some point? Like, what is your next step then?
It's obviously hard to imagine being bored of this. Like every day, there's like so many fires with this startup. Yeah, right now it's like the exciting time. Like our last 2 months have been our biggest month. Each month improves. It's our new largest month. So we're starting to get traction channels. Yeah, and it's just, there's so many things, like our roadmaps plan another 6 to 8 years in the future. I don't know that we'll ever finish it at this point. So I'm not too worried about getting bored or running out of ideas.
Fair enough. And so with your architecture, so you're saying you deploy things in these different countries, and the whole question, private, public, cloud, like what kind of cloud providers do you use, and like what does your architecture look like then?
We use Amazon Web Services, AWS, Vultr, DigitalOcean, and then private co-located facilities, essentially avoiding like a single point of failure with a single cloud provider.
Do you use both Vultr and DigitalOcean? Does one provide something that the other really does?
Yeah, actually, Vultr provides custom ISOs that we can upload, which is, so we maintain a lab to test all these devices. It's not just, we don't need just a Windows and a Mac and a Linux device. We have to have every version of Windows that we're going to support all the way back to Windows Server 2012 and Windows 8.1 to make sure patching and all of these things work with every single upgrade. So we maintain a lab of hundreds of devices. And so we host a lot of those Vultr and DigitalOcean, just like test devices.
And so since you're doing infrastructure, so I thought a lot of folks that did infrastructure really preferred Azure over AWS. Was there a decision point on that, or was it just AWS?
I've just used AWS so much in the past. I haven't used Azure.
I use it a lot.
I've used Google Cloud and AWS. I like them both.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care. We could use either. It's just infrastructure.
I guess that's one interesting question, just kind of a side note, is so with Google's cloud services, like it's Google and yet they're the also ran. Like, do you know why that is? It's so bizarre to me that, I mean, it's Google, and yet I know very few people that actually care about Google's cloud service.
I have theories on why that is. I mean, so Google Cloud has, and I think we're going to go into cloud here. Google Cloud has like the best interface in terms of like design, outside of like DigitalOcean, obviously is killing it in that area. AWS is like really confusing. It's very overwhelming, and the design is honestly pretty bad for across the board, all of their managed services. So I think Google Cloud is killing it from a UI UX standpoint, but their APIs are not as nice or well polished as AWS's APIs. And also like AWS has like the local AWS agent, so you can quickly like sync files with S3 and manage your database in your cluster. I don't know if you've ever played around with Google's cloud tool, it is very painful. You have like the commands are sentences long. It's painful. So I think that's my theory. Most people doing like DevOps at scale don't care, right? They write their infrastructure in Terraform or in some way as code, and then they're cloud agnostic. They can tomorrow I could go and I could say, hey, we're going to go to Azure, we're going to get rid of all AWS and all of the cloud, and it should be, 30 minutes, we should be able to ship from providers as well.
Okay. So then a couple final questions. Just out of curiosity, as somebody that's been in the field now for a while, if this did fail, because there's a lot of people that need to reskill, retrain, get a new job. So with your position right now, if something happened, what would you do next? Like where do you think an actual value proposition if you had to restart is?
Well, I can tell you I'm not going to do another startup. I'm definitely burned out from starting companies. So I would probably go back to corporate, I'd go back to Apple.
Is there any technology you'd focus on right now?
Yeah, I would probably focus on machine learning.
That's another side thing, just thinking about it. So like with Apple, so you support Apple products. I have heard a lot of people, it can be a bit of a disaster dealing with Apple in the real world. Have you run into any weird issues with trying to get do you have an app because you're agents, so with what you do, is there an approval process? Like, do they randomly do security lockdowns and you get shut out of stuff?
Yeah, it's a pain. It is very pain to deal with Apple's developer center in general. Yeah.
Just that.
It's horrible. Like, it is a person's sole focus is making sure that every time we release, Apple notarizes as you would expect, it signs the app as you would expect, it makes it through the approval process. It is, compared to like releasing Windows or Linux app, 90-day difference. It's 30 plus minutes. So kind of a role in writing software in general is everything should be automated. Your software shouldn't have a human have to manually touch it to get it out. It's just bad practice, right? So to release a new agent, take us maybe 35 seconds for Windows and Linux. If you account for that, we're looking at 45 minutes to an hour to release, which is painful if you're trying to release several times a day.
So with that, have they gotten better, worse over the years? Like, is this growing pains, or is they're so big they don't care?
I think it's gotten worse actually. At least in our area, right? Because there's so much of Apple's ecosystem is undocumented, especially with the RMN and MDM side of the equation. And so you literally just cannot find the information anywhere unless it's external forums. And then good luck with reaching out to Apple and getting and Apple hearing that.
And so if you were 18 again or 16 again and you're going out there to get a job, so you do machine learning now with where you're at, but if you were 18 and truly starting from the beginning, where do you think you'd start right now?
Cybersecurity.
And so what does that actually mean? Because I hear a lot of people saying hey, you're Security Plus. And it's like, really? Can you really get a job? I mean, maybe you can, but really, can you get a job with Security Plus?
Probably not. Right? So for me, cybersecurity is kind of the hardening of the infrastructure. And I see that becoming even more important as we grow. And companies, even smaller companies, I'm talking 500 employee size, are starting to hire their own aggressive ops team to do pen testing on their own networks, full-time in-house. And that's because this is becoming a substantial attack.
And how would they go about actually getting a quality start? Because frankly, what I see from a lot of institutions is that it's all about a cash grab for the institution, very little about whether or not the student knows anything. How would they, what should they look for? If they're going for a college or a certification program, what do you think they should look for?
So you could go the certification route, and in that route you would look for certified ethical hacker, CISP, which is a certified information security professional, system security professional, and there's certified system information security manager. There's a bunch of certs in these spaces. There's also like offensive security professional, which is like focused on having aggressive operations outbound. All of those certifications, I mean, individually, they don't mean very much, but when you start to combine 2 or 3, that tells me you have a really good understanding. Like if I see you have SISP, I know you have foundational knowledge of the core competencies, like you know, access control requirements for a company. When I see Security Plus, I know that you have, you know, a fundamental understanding of subnets and networking, VLANs, and that kind of stuff. So you can go the certification or degree route. I think what's most important to companies is likely experience. That's a little hard to do, like without it's like a catch-22. But there's a lot of really cool capture the flag sites that as you rank up, you kind of build a reputation and you can get found that way. So I might go for something like that where I can say, like, hey, I've passed the first 200 levels of capture the flag, hacker competition, and these are the competencies that I have to show. I think that would be almost as effective as we telling you how to use it.
So is this just a site that you go to? Is it like a game platform almost, or like what is it?
Yeah, there's several now. There's one, I don't know if this one's still open. There's a new one in place, but it's called Hack the Box. And essentially, each assignment gets progressively harder. And it's like, okay, well, you know, maybe the first one, you view the source code and the password's right there in plain text. You copy and paste it. Now you're in level 2. And level 2 is like, you gotta open up the JavaScript console and the password's there, you know. But as you progress through the levels, it does get increasingly complicated. And it's very gamified, so it's pretty fun if you're into that.
And do you think it's good for new tech? Because I guess this is my quandary. This is like, I dislike new techs going straight into cybersecurity without learning how to build crap first. Are you like, nah, it's fine, just do cybersecurity?
Yeah, I don't know that you could do cybersecurity without like a fundamental like base foundational knowledge. So like you need to understand networks, or you're definitely not going to be able to secure them. And like so much of InfoSec starts at like these technical subject areas that, yeah, you're gonna have a tough time to say like I'm a cybersecurity guy who don't understand networking or how to maintain a computer. You really have to be a tier 1 tech, tier 2 tech. Kind of have to grab out the reins.
So, okay. So I guess the final question then, for anybody here, somebody with 5 stickers on them, are you hiring then? What are you hiring for if you are?
We're not currently hiring, but maybe soon.
Thank you. So is there any questions for where they're going and what's happening now? Alex.
Hey, Jacob. So it's been interesting to be involved and see before you arrived and know the history, and to see where you're at today. I'm very excited to have seen the ideas. I was actually one of the people who talked to your founders, and I was sitting in my office venting about something I hated about IT work. And 2 weeks later, they called me and said, "Hey, come to the office. We want to talk to you." And I knew about this whole project before you were there, and then all the struggles they went through trying to find the right person, and then you were hired on. And I thought that was a great hire because they were good friends of mine. One of the things that I wanted to know, because I asked them a long time ago, and I think maybe once we talked about this in your roadmap, is is Level planning to support network devices? I know you do workstations and servers, but are you planning on venturing into the like SNMP or whatever technology you're going to use for doing that?
Hopefully this year. I hope.
Thank you. How would you maintain your company business stable? Like you mentioned that I would like to, to bring my operations maybe to the next level and have a stable business in a way in terms of like new clients maybe, or like, could you please explain it? Or maybe you have a like business plan for the future.
So the question was essentially how can I
right? And to make a stable company. Remember you were saying, like, yeah, a stable company to make it, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the trick to building a stable company, I've yet to figure that out, but the goal there is to be profitable as quickly as we can. And we're on track to do that. And so the best way to do that is to control your growth, right? We have 9 employees. We shouldn't hire anymore unless we absolutely have to have them. But then there's some like decisions that you have to make at key inflection points, where even though you're not profitable, you still have to hire to just continue to support the app and keep things operational. So it really is a balance. And then in regards to like getting that early traction and growth, that's probably been the most difficult for us. Like, none of our founders have a marketing or sales background, so we're all just like figuring this out as we go. And we picked a sector, IT in particular, that tends to be rather antisocial. So it's very difficult when you're antisocial. They're also antisocial for you guys to connect and then you to like pitch or sell your product. So we take a really hands-off approach. Like, we demo our products. If you like it, you think it could be helpful, then we'd love to have you as a customer. If not, that's totally okay. We have a free trial. You can sign up, start using it right away. So we've essentially just tried to remove as many of the barriers that we can. And I look like to many of our competitors where you have to talk to somebody before you can even use the app, or they have a free trial, or you have to engage in long-term contracts. All of those are barriers that prevent you from gathering any initial companies. And I guess the last piece of advice would be, it's okay like for your first 100 customers if they're not your like ideal customer, your target customer that you're going after. You just need to get those customers so you can get some revenue coming in.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I'm not cheating. I'm not asking questions that are softballs that I know the answers to. This is just something that came to mind as you were talking about competitors. Of your customers, Jacob, how many are customers that prior to Level.io did not have any kind of remote management solution? And what proportion of your customers are you displacing a competitor? And talk a little bit about the difference between a greenfield sale versus displacing a competitor.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's about 50-50. I would say half of our companies, they have some existing tool in place that they're looking to replace. And in those cases, the sell is like very comparison driven. It's like, for us, from a sales standpoint, it's like, what do you not like? Why are you even looking? Like, what do you not like? Let's understand the pain points that you're experiencing. And then if I feel that we can solve that pain better than the competitor, I'll show you our product, I'll show you how we solve the pain. And if I don't, I'll just end the call, just say, hey, I don't think we're the best fit for you. I don't want to waste your time. And that's helped a lot, at least take the pressure off of me. But it's also got us business. Like, they came back to us 2 years later because they remembered that I didn't pressure them, and now we have that feature that they cared about. So replacing an RMM is a slower sales process. If they have an existing solution, it can take a week or two to like determine, are they going to do it? Are they going to pull the trigger and switch products? If they don't have anything in place, it's my absolute favorite sell because it's a clear win. Like immediately when they see the product, they're like, wow, I have no clue how I've been handling IT without having a centralized place to view my devices. I have no clue how, it's just the ROI and the time savings is so clear cut if you're not using a solution that it becomes a really easy sell.
Any final questions? Cool. All right. Thanks for coming. Thanks for talking with us. Any final things you want to say? No, you're good. All right. Cool. Thanks. Oh, thank you.